Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the webinar Making AI Work in Vocational Education and Training. My name's Peter Kilcoyne, and I'm here with Ruth Cole from Yuzu Training and Gavin Smith from GTA England. So, firstly, I'd like to welcome you all. Thanks very much for your interest in this and for coming along. So, welcome, thanks very much. Housekeeping, any questions, if you pop them in the chat, we'll try and take the questions at the end of each session, depending on how many we get. If we do get too many, and I'm hoping that won't be the case, we can follow up via email later on. So what we're going to be doing today is I will be kicking off with a brief overview of TeacherMatic for those of you that aren't familiar with the platform. And then I'm going to do a live demonstration so you can see how the TeacherMatic AI tools work and how you might be able to use them in your own professional capacity. And then I'm going to be handing over to the stars of the show, Ruth and Gavin, who are both users of TeacherMatic in the vocational education and training sectors. And they will be talking about, Ruth, firstly, how TeacherMatic is being used at Yuzu Training. Gavin will be talking about how it's being used across the GTA England members. Okay. So firstly, what is TeacherMatic? You can see there a screenshot of the platform and basically it's an AI toolkit for education. It's got over 150 tools designed for use by teachers, assessors, managers, HR, careers, student support, business support, etc. And there are tools in TeacherMatic, and I'll be showing you a few of them later on, for planning, for teaching, learning and assessment, for marking and feedback, for productivity, and many other tasks. And TeacherMatic was launched about 3.5 years ago by 4 of us here. We're all from UK vocational education, so I do still find it odd introducing myself as the managing director. I've worked as a teacher and a manager and a director all my career since 1986, mainly in the further education sector. And between the 4 of us who put TeacherMatic together, we've got over 100 years experience in vocational education. So why did we build TeacherMatic? The main reason was we wanted to create an AI platform that was easy for people to use. That when we first saw ChatGPT about 5 years ago, and my sort of previous role for the last 20 years in further education was supporting staff in using technology, and it was pretty clear to me that when teachers and other people working in education are using things like ChatGPT and then more recently Copilot and Gemini and Claude, etc. Basically, you just got a box to type into. And that's not very user-friendly. It's like, well, what am I meant to do with this? And to get good content out of them, you've got to be very good at this thing called prompt engineering. And it struck us, the 4 founders, that a toolkit that would avoid the need for prompt engineering and would just cover a range of everyday tasks that people in education carry out, giving them the tools to carry out those tasks without putting in prompts could be very useful. And so that's how TeacherMatic works and what it does. And so it's designed to make using AI accessible for everybody, not just people who are confident using technology. TeacherMatic has been driven by co-design. So since day one, we've worked with educators, primarily in further education and other vocational learning environments, who have co-designed a platform with us. So the ideas for the tools that we've built have come from the sector, and we've worked with practitioners, and Ruth has been quite heavily involved in a number of the tools that we've developed, so that you can be sure that the tools aren't just built by an external company for you. They're built in partnership with people like yourselves to make sure that they work in the way that people working in vocational education need them to. TeacherMatic is a very secure platform, which is very important for all of us in education. And if you've got any staff or if any of you are using some AI tools like ChatGPT, particularly the free versions of it, those are not secure, and anything that you put in there, you're feeding those large language models. So with TeacherMatic, you can be very secure that any information that you're putting in there doesn't train any large language model, isn't going anywhere. So there's no risks of any leakage of important data about your organisation or about your students when you're using TeacherMatic. And we've got a very large user base, over 350 organisations and 60,000 users an hour. And a lot of evidence that it does save time, and typically around 4 hours per week is what different surveys and organisations doing their own research have found that it can save people. So let's do a demonstration. So this is what TeacherMatic looks like when you log on, and you log on using your Microsoft account if you've got one. So you can use your organisational account to get in. You don't have to use another password or username or anything. And what you see when you log on are these things called generators. We've got 150 of them: scheme of work, lesson plan, glossary, learning activities, worksheets, multiple choice questions, and they go on and on. 150. I've got time to read them all. We've got tools for lots of different roles, so specific tools for teachers. If any leaders are here, I click on the leadership tools. You see we've got things around improvement planning, change management, policies and strategies, inspection preparations, dealing with grievances and complaints, etc. So a wide range of different tools. And the way that the tools work, I'm just going to quickly show you the multiple choice questions one, is you click on a tool and the form pops up. So this is why you don't have to do any prompt engineering. All you have to do is fill in a few questions around a particular point. So maybe you're teaching something like cybersecurity. So you put that in to your topic. And with TeacherMatic, all you have to fill in is the ones that have got the star next to it. But we've got some additional ones that if you want to give the AI a bit more information, you can do. But ask it to create 10 questions. We see we've got different sectors here. So I'm going to select vocational sector, click on generate, and that's now going to write me 10 multiple choice questions. It generally takes sort of 20 to 30 seconds. There we go. And so you see that's then created me 10 multiple choice questions. What's the main purpose of firewall? Block unauthorized access. And so you think, how much time would that save you? To write 10 multiple choice questions, probably 45 minutes to an hour, and TeacherMatic has done that in a minute. And if I click on how do I get those out, we've got this export option here, and driven by our customers, we've got lots and lots of different export options. So you can export these as a PDF, a Word document, into Moodle, Kahoot, Looklet, Gimclit, Blackboard Canvas, Google Forms, Brightspace, lots and lots of different things that different organisations in vocational education and training might be using. So very easy for you to create some multiple choice questions for your learners. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the other tools. So the next tool I'm going to time is a scheme of work curriculum plan. So here I'm going to imagine that I'm a welding assessor or tutor. I'm teaching the BTEC Level 3 National Extended Diploma in Engineering. I'm teaching the unit on welding technology, and I want to create a scheme of work or curriculum plan. So I put in the course title. I want a single unit. I put in the unit title. And then optionally, I can upload the specification, which I've done there. And the more, as with any AI, the more information you give it, the better that will be. So that will help it. So it makes sure it creates a scheme of work around that particular unit specification. And I've asked it for 30 sessions and an hour and 2 hours for each session. And you see here it's created then that scheme of work, session by session, with the topic, the learning objectives, activities and resources that you'll need for that. And again, if you think of the time that would save you compared to having to sit down with a blank piece of paper and write your own scheme of work. Now, with anything with AI, we say, look on this as giving you a strong first draft. And that typically what people would do then is they would export that as a Word document and then go into Word, and there it is in Word. And then you could edit it, make it your own, move things around, tweak it. But that's a lot quicker to do that than it is starting from scratch. So the next tool I'm going to show you is the lesson plan. So I've taken one of those sessions, safe working practices in welding. And I should explain also what I know about welding. I could write on a postage stamp and still have some room to spare. I used to teach psychology when I was a side of things. But what I've done here is I've taken one of the topics from that scheme of work, told it I want an hour and 20-minute lesson. And see, it's written me a very detailed lesson plan with some learning objectives. And then minute by minute, what it's suggesting that I do and the resources I'm going to need. And you see here, I can actually edit live. If I want to make some tweaks, I can edit this actually on the platform. Now, that's just a very simple learning plan where all I did was put in the topic and the area and the amount of time. There are quite a lot of additional features you can add. So if I go more about learners, I could put in a learner group profile, tell TeacherMatic about the group I'm teaching, and then that would tweak the lesson to that learner. If I want to identify I've got any particular learning needs in that group, so perhaps I've got a learner with dyslexia, another learner on the autism spectrum, and another learner with English as an additional language. I can tell it that. And then if I click on regenerate, what that's going to do now is it's going to redo that lesson plan, taking into account those particular send requirements. Again, it'll take a few moments to do that. So there we go. And so it will have built those things into the actual lesson plan. And then you see at the end, it's given some additional guidance of things that you can do for learners with dyslexia, with autism spectrum disorder, and with English as an additional language. So, the lesson plan. This tool looks at learning activities. So here, I want some learning activities around health and safety and welding, given it the area of study, engineering, and it said how many suggestions I want. 3, again, telling it vocational education. And so it's given me 3 different learning activities, other group activities that I could do. So one on a PPE inspection workshop where learners will inspect a range of PPE equipment and look for signs of wear and damage. Another one, hazard mapping in a workshop. Learners will tour a welding workshop and identify potential hazards. And emergency response scenario role play. It could be quite a fun one where the learners, you'll get them to act out a scenario where there's been an accident and they will act out practicing how to deal with that. Okay, the next one I want to show you is our image-based content generator. And what I did here is I found this image. It's a welding helmet. It's a bit like Darth Vader to me, but it's actually a welding helmet, I understand. And with this one, it's one of my favourite generators. It's a lot of fun. Is you can upload any image into TeacherMatic, and then you can select a whole range of different outputs: a summary of the image, a quiz based on the image, a worksheet, 5 projects about that, a short or a longer lesson plan, or a conversation. So what I did is I uploaded that image and said I want a worksheet. And one option here is add relevant health and safety advice, definitely relevant for that particular image. And so this is what TeacherMatic does. So firstly, it can recognise exactly what that image is. The image depicts a black welding helmet commonly used in an industrial setting, features a large rectangular tilted visor designed to protect the wearer's eyes from intense light. So it recognises what the image is. It gives information about that. And then here's a worksheet on that with some questions, a practical task, and some health and safety advice. And say I wanted to change that from a worksheet maybe to 5 projects. I click on regenerate. That will now give me 5 projects around that. So this is great. If you've got any sort of technical equipment, you can just take a photograph of your camera on your phone, upload that into TeacherMatic, and generate learning activities, worksheets, all sorts of different things around those bits of equipment are you'll find in vocational learning. So you see, so it's given me 5 different projects: design and ergonomics of welding helmets, how to maintain them, a safety demonstration, material testing and durability, and the safety campaign. Okay, moving on. We've recently introduced some assessment tools in TeacherMatic, tools that do the marking. And these have rapidly become our most popular tools by quite some distance, and they're being very heavily used. And remembering my own experience when I was teaching, having big piles of marking, which I would often ruin my weekends when I want to be with my family, I can very much understand that. And these tools are designed so it does what we call hybrid marking, where it's designed so the human is still in the loop, but the AI does a lot of the heavy lifting. So what I've got here, the first one I'm going to show you is actually for psychology. I don't have a huge amount of student work because obviously for confidentiality reasons, but I've got a few psychology assignments I can show you, but the subject here isn't important. What's important is the process and how the tool works. So if you want TeacherMatic to do some marking for you, the first thing you do is you go to the this is the advanced feedback tool, and you click on add assignment. And you complete this short form telling it about the assignment, the title, uploading the assignment brief, the level, etc. And then once you've done that, just go through to this one here. You can then click on upload, and you can upload some assignments. So if I wanted to upload my assignments, I could select those 2 there, click on open, and those upload. And you can as well drag and drop them on there. So now what TeacherMatic does, and actually you see I've got ethics essay 1 twice here. I've actually uploaded the same free essay twice here. It gives detailed feedback. So if I go to view feedback here, TeacherMatic writes detailed feedback on the assignment. It gives a summary. Your essay demonstrates a solid understanding of ethical consideration in psychological research, blah. It writes detailed feedback on each section of the assignment. And this is an assignment that's graded in percentages. We've got all of the different grading scales that you might use in vocational education, distinction, merit, pass, lots and lots of other ones. We've got the GCSE scale, the A-level scale, etc. But this one is a percentage grade. And you see that was awarded 66%. And it is very reliable in giving similar grades if you upload the same assignment twice. So if I click on this one where I uploaded that same assignment again, you see it's not exactly the same. It's given it 1% less this time, 65%. So the marking is very reliable. As well as that, it creates a PDF. So this is the actual student assignment, and the purple bits are where TeacherMatic has written feedback directly onto the assignment, a bit like in the olden days I would have done with my red pen. And so the teacher, you can then read that. If you agree with it, you can leave it. You can add some further text to it if you wish, and then save that. If you don't agree with that, you can delete it. And you can add your own feedback. And so this is where we've got that hybrid human in the loop coming in, where you can write your own bits of feedback and see we've got these different colours. You can distinguish between what is AI feedback and what is human feedback using these different colours. We have a similar tool that is designed for the BTEC style of assessment. And I know that if you're doing vocational education and training, a lot of your apprentices, your learners, your students may be doing BTEC qualification. And this works in a very similar way. Apart from when you look at the actual feedback, again, we get that summary, but it then gives the feedback in the BTEC type format, where it looks at your P1s, your P2s, M1s, B1s, etc., and looks at the student assignment and says, well, for this particular student on this assignment, they've achieved the P1, they've not yet achieved P2, M1, or D1. And again, with that one, you've got the annotated PDF. Okay, so that is the end of my demonstration. Does anybody have any questions before I move on? I'm usually a little bit ahead of time here. So have the Ruth, Gavin, I don't mean it looks like there haven't been any questions.
No, there hasn't so far, please.
Okay, right. Well, I will pass on to Ruth now.
Lovely. Thank you, Peter, and thank you again for the demonstration. Brilliant as ever. What I would like to do is just talk through our journey at Yuzu training. So I talk about who we are and how we're currently working with alongside TeacherMatic. Thank you. So we're an independent training provider. We're based in Southampton, but we work around Hampshire and the surrounding counties. And we currently deliver apprenticeships, skills boot camps, and adult skills funded training. I work as Director of Quality of Education, and I'm the Safeguarding DSL. So what have we done and why have we done it? What we wanted to do to begin with is obviously look at how we could enhance our quality of teaching to have more impactful learning. When we looked at supportive AI, and you'll hear me say through the whole thing, it supports what we do. It certainly doesn't replace anybody or anything as such. I needed to make sure that our teaching practice, it did enhance, that it brought to the teaching practice, and also that it was safe. Now, within our teaching and learning, we always use the framework, the ETF Professional Standards Framework. So looking at that, we mapped across of how it aligned with using and supporting and promoting technology. And we also used the framework to monitor learners, which I'll talk about a little bit later, how we use it within our quality as well. Thanks, Peter. So how did we approach it? The first thing we looked at was the ethics. We knew that our team members might have questions about the ethical use, and they might be concerned about it replacing them. So we spoke with the team members, we identified what their fears were, and we looked at our own research and our best fit approach. So whilst we were doing that, we did look at a few different alternatives. And as Peter said, using things like chat independently, Copilot independently. But we decided through another college that recommended TeacherMatic that we looked at that. So the first thing we did, similar to what you are doing at the moment, we attended a webinar. We looked at how the generators would work, and we signed up for a 2-week trial. And we opened that up to our teaching and our non-teaching staff. So once we had a look at it and we used the trial account, we identified a few volunteer trailblazers, because again, we wanted to continue to grow our journey with TeacherMatic to make sure it was a good fit for our team members and for our learners. So by purchasing just a few accounts initially, it allowed us to look at how it worked within leadership, how it could work within marketing, and how it worked with our trainers and other practitioners. I've got a couple of tips as I go through the presentation. One is to have a look at the strategic rollout guide, because again, that supported us and it supports any provider to have a look at how different rollout might work within your organisation. So as I've mentioned already, we've got our volunteer team members, but what else did we do that was critical, certainly to get it for safe and ethical use? We devised a safe use of AI policy, which looked at absolutely everything, the governance of the AI, it looked at prescribing platforms and also the staff training and the learner journey. We shared the best practice across teams. When you have an administration account, you can see who's using which generators. And again, using that and talking to the team members, we're able to identify who our practitioners were that were using certain generators and shared it across the team. We gathered the feedback at all stages, so we continuously gathered feedback from the team members and gathered feedback from our learners and other stakeholders of how our use of AI was impacting on them. Yeah, as I mentioned before, absolutely critical. We felt we needed to prescribe the use. As Peter has touched on earlier, we didn't want any of our information being leaked out into the public domain. So we made sure we only had closed platforms named in our policy. And again, we supported and trained our team members to make sure they understood the risk that could pose if they used AI generators outside the policy. So staff training. Again, within the platform, there's an absolute excellent, I think there's an updated training program as well. So we utilised the training programs, the webinars, and the self-study training program within the platform. Additionally, we looked at the DFE training, again, the free training, because we wanted to make sure we had a holistic training approach with our team members. So if you haven't looked at the DFE training, I'd recommend that's one to look for as well. So how do we use it? Within quality and leadership, we use it to support our quality assurance sampling. We use it, again, you can see it all the way through, support the creation of our self-assessment review and our quality improvement plan, support the extraction of key information. There's a really good generator called Insights. So as we have local trends documentation coming through us, we used it obviously to support our reading of the document to give us the headline. And again, we use it to support our tender writing. Fabulous, thank you, Peter. And within marketing, we use it to support our social media posts and press releases and many more. As Peter said, there's about 150 generators and they're all divided into departments. So for the marketing, there's plenty of generators to support that. And within teaching and learning, creation of interactive resources. Active learning is obviously key. And there's an absolutely brilliant generator called Inspiration. So if you've been teaching a topic for a little while, it just gives you additional ideas of how you could teach it and how you can then use those ideas with the other generators to create really interactive, fun teaching resources. Again, support within feedback, as Peter has shown, not to make the judgments, but to support the judgment and to support the feedback with the human oversight and to support identification of the fresh teaching approaches. So if you've worked in teaching a little while, it really helps to re-energize your teaching approaches and what you can do. So the impact, on average, we save around about 5 hours a week. So it does support our staff work-life balance, which is absolutely critical. So again, with getting the feedback, looking at the administration dashboard, we can see that we're saving around about 5 hours a week. And I know a question always comes up, what do Ofsted think? Now, we had Ofsted in recently, and obviously I can't talk about the outcome of the Ofsted, but I could put people's mind at ease. They were interested. We didn't hide the fact we were using AI. They were very interested in having the conversation about what we use. How did we make sure it's safe? How did we make sure it's ethical? So it was brilliant to be able to show that and to get the feedback from Ofsted that it's something they're aware of. But again, a top tip, don't hide it, use it effectively, but talk about it. And also when you're talking about it, one thing I didn't cover earlier is making sure your learners know how you're using it. And again, it supports their ethical use of it because you can use that expertise. So why TeacherMatic? As a small organisation, TeacherMatic really treat us as a key stakeholder. As Peter said earlier, we're involved, we get ideas. Could we have that generator? What would it work? So we really feel like we're a key account holder and a key customer, even though we're in reality quite small. We know our voice is heard. I know that because I can see that in the generators that we said, can we have, would this work? And it's absolutely cost effective. Cost is critical, and the cost really suits small organisations. And we know that it's actually created by educators for educators. So that's me. So any questions?
Okay, thanks very much, Ruth. I think there's one question that's came up, probably more for my presentation, Tammy Wise, saying, is there a bank of content for each vocation? Well, yes and no, in the sense it doesn't have any bank of content. It uses AI, and so it creates content based on what you put into it. But it is completely agnostic in terms of it will work across any vocational area or any academic area at all, at any level. So we've got people at entry level through to universities using it at postgraduate level and across all sorts of different vocational and academic areas. So Tammy, whatever it is that you're working and you're teaching, it can work for. And if you want to maybe type in a topic that you deliver or any of your colleagues deliver, I can show you an example at the end. Okay, thanks very much, Ruth. So I'll just check, does anybody have any questions? And I saw, Robert, you had your hand up. So if you want to type any question in, Robert, that you might have, please pop it in the chat. Okay, so I will now stop sharing and I will hand over to Gavin.
Thank you, Peter. Let's just get my screen up. Hopefully you can all see a screen which is sort of a rather battleship colour, making AI work for GTA England.
Coming through loud and clear.
Brilliant, that's great. So, first of all, who are GTA England? I expect most of you have never heard of us before. We're quite a well-kept secret. GTA England is a membership organisation, and we currently have 26 members. We were formed originally to raise the profile and represent the group training associations across England. Group training associations date right the way back to the 70s. They're essentially employer-led training providers based on charitable and not-for-profit status. So we represent the GTAs across the country. We also represent the models. So we're not just about those that are in GTA England membership. We're promoting the GTA model. As I say, currently 26 members, and that is a mix of providers, GTAs, employer providers, and employers. Across the network, we engage with some 24,500 employers of all sizes. So we have large employers we work with, and we also engage with SMEs throughout the membership. And the membership represents about 22,000 or so apprentices. And each year we, as GTA England, account for about 15% of all of the engineering and manufacturing apprenticeship starts. So we are very much focused on apprenticeships and technical training, so very much in that vocational space. So just a little bit how we support our members with digital technologies. And we steered away from using the word AI because a lot of people are obviously in the earlier stages very cynical, very worried. So we tend to use the word digital technology. So GTA England runs 6 what we call communities of practice. So we're bringing together people from across our membership, mostly online, to address common challenges within their areas of expertise. And just for your information, we currently have a funding, audit and compliance community, quality, safeguarding, our digital technologies, business development and recruitment, and we have an operations / delivery community as well, all working on very much important topics for their particular area. So in terms of the digital technologies community, it's established as a collaborative forum for those responsible for implementing digital solutions. So again, we're not just necessarily looking at teaching and learning, we're looking at data, MI, the whole range of things. And the group exists to improve operational efficiency, enhance the quality of education delivery, and ensure compliance with relevant regulations through the use of technology. So just to give you an idea of some of the things we get up to, we've reviewed and taken on demonstrations for learner management systems to help members either upgrade, renew, or change their LMS depending on what they're trying to use. We've run our own prompt writing workshop because I think we all fell into the trap in the early days of AI. We just put a load of loose words in and then wondered why it didn't generate the result that we were expecting or wanting it to. We've done some work around AI literacy and governance. Ruth alluded to the need for the policies and the controls to make sure that it's used appropriate. We've worked a little bit on Power BI, and then on a regular basis, we review and we have demonstrations of AI apps that group members have come across and might be using. And TeacherMatic. Sorry, just going back there. So why do we look at TeacherMatic? So through the community, one of the areas that we identified was around efficiency and time saving that we needed to make for teaching staff. Most of our members tend to be smaller training providers, and teaching staff, they're not in abundance, and so most of them are fairly flat out in the classroom most of the time. So how could we bring some time saving for our teaching staff? Schemes of work, lesson plans, course materials, could we get efficiencies there? And the big one, which Peter mentioned, is around assignment marking, particularly around BTEC programs, HNC, HND, and qualifications like that. So we looked at a whole range of options, similar to as Ruth did at Yuzu. We looked at ChatGPT, Copilot, and various other bits and pieces, but came up against the same issue, that the minute we started to put our information in there, we'd lost it to the large language learning models and all of that sort of thing. And some of the sort of documentation we're working on is specific to big customers, big employers, and that who wouldn't be grateful for some information then being shared more publicly. A slight governing factor in it is we'd worked with Peter before on a previous project. We worked with him on a project called Course in a Box. And so it was quite useful that we were working again with Peter, somebody who understood the setup of GTA England and had an understanding of our members. So we took demonstration of TeacherMatic, obviously we had conversations with Peter and the team, and decided that we would go ahead and start to look at implementing TeacherMatic across the GTA England network. But because we're a membership organisation, how did we do that? Did we just simply turn around and go, well, each member would buy their own licenses and then they would operate it, and then at various points of the community of practice, we'd come back together and compare notes on how it was working and how it was going? Or did we look at a new approach for GTA England? And through the community of practice, we decided on a very much a new approach. We decided that GTA England would become the centre in the middle, and the members using TeacherMatic would work around the outside to the GTA England model. So we made the decision that as GTA England, we would pay for 2 licenses per member to get the rollout underway and get people introduced to it. Members were invited to buy additional licenses, and a number of them did, in addition to the 2. More critically was the architecture and that around the models. So we worked with PPG Consulting to build that. So what we've in effect done is we assign all of our users a GTA England Microsoft account purely to generate in effect a user name and a password. They don't get licensed Microsoft login to TeacherMatic. It also means that as GTA England, I can sit here and I can manage the licenses. So I can reallocate. If somebody goes out of membership, then we can remove the access to the licenses and reallocate them back into members. So having made that decision and got the model in place, we had initial training for all users, which Peter very kindly delivered for us. And we rolled our system out or went live at the beginning of June last year. We continued the support with PPG for 3 months. So if anybody had access issues or problems using the system, they had readily available support to do that, including the support that TeacherMatic obviously provide for people as well. Just to give you some stats, and I think this is sort of picks up on where Ruth and that had been. So over our 11 months, the most popular generator is the feedback generator. And we've had 2,299 uses of that. And this is absolutely the bit that is saving the time for our members, is in that assignment feedback, that assignment marking. We've got one of our members who uses the feedback generator in quite a different way. They have put essentially an administrator in place who receives all the assignments from their instructors, loads them into TeacherMatic and generates the initial assignment feedback. That then goes back to the instructor, who then obviously has to check it and provide the feedback to the learner. And obviously there's that quality assurance process in place whereby the instructors have to sign to say that they've read and understood the feedback. But it's just a slightly different way of doing it. I think the system also would allow, if we've got members who are under particular time pressures, it could even mean that remotely somebody at GTA England could run some initial lesson plan schemes of work for the members to support and save that time. The PowerPoint generator is quite popular, multi-choice questions, and then ask TeacherMatic. Slightly less than Ruth, but we're saving probably about 3.5 hours per user per week. So still, we've sort of achieved what we set out to do. Where do we go from here? Because we're just coming to our first year anniversary of using it. We need to go back to the promoting the benefits. I think we've allowed it to become very focused on assignment marking and those teaching generators. We need now to look at the wider generators, the support for marketing, the support for quality and things like that. We need to expand the understanding and use of the generators, as I've just said. And I think we need to provide some further training, whether that be using the built-in courses that are available, or whether we bring TeacherMatic back in to do some more training for us. And I think we need to look at splitting that training into levels as well. So we're doing something for managers as well as teaching staff. And the other big bit we need to do is to identify and highlight good practice sharing across the community. Would we recommend TeacherMatic? Based on our experience, absolutely we would. It's easy to use, it's cost effective, and it's achieving one of the main objectives that the community set out to do, and that was to, achieve some time and resource saving for our members. So we would absolutely recommend. That's it from me, Peter. Is there any questions anybody has?
Thank you very much, Gavin.
Sorry, Peter, can I just add something?
Yes, please do.
Going back to it'll work in any environment. I probably shouldn't say this. I have a son who's doing a master's in physiotherapy, and I ran an assignment of his through TeacherMatic to gain feedback, and it worked at master's level, and the feedback it gave was very helpful and very good.
I'm glad to hear that. Yes, and it doesn't surprise me. We're doing a project with JISC at the moment with a number of universities and vocational providers, and we've got postgraduate work going through it, and it does a very good job at giving feedback on that. And yes, say there, absolutely. TeacherMatic is used in many different countries and across different levels. So yeah, I'm confident whatever it is that you're doing, it can be useful to you. Okay, well, I'd like to thank Gavin and Ruth very much. Does anybody have any final questions? It's nice we finished a few minutes ahead of time. I will just share my own details again. So if anybody would like to email me any final questions, you can see my contact details there, peter@teachermatic.com. And yeah, if you want any questions, if you'd like a demo account to try it out for a couple of weeks, if you're interested in buying it for your organisation, please contact me. Okay, I'll just wait for a moment just in case anyone's got any final questions, and then I'll close the webinar. Okay, well, it looks like I can't see that anyone's typing. So I'd like to say a big thank you again to Gavin and Ruth for their contributions. And I hope you've all found that useful. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to find out more about TeacherMatic. Goodbye, everybody.